Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast with your host Leslie Zare, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast. I'm Leslie Zare, I'm your host. And today we have a very special event. We have one of our roundtables. So we're going to be discussing children and dancing with children. So let me just introduce you to my guests. We have Dr. Karen McKinley Kurnaedy. And Karen is a Canadian dancer, writer, and educator. We also have Dr. Melissa Michaels. And Melissa's been birthing generations of embodied global leaders. And we have Rawan AlHusseini, and Rawan is a recreation and play specialist. And Wendy Morrell. Wendy is the president of the International Sacred Dance Guild and is dedicated to promoting movement and dance and as an expression of what we hold sacred. And last but not least, we have Alana Shaw. And Alana is a transformational guide, workshop leader, author, artist, and one of the nation's experts in community and art-based social change work. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
I'm very excited about this subject. This is another one that's dear to my heart. I guess they all are, or I probably wouldn't be doing them. But I think this is a very important topic. So this is why I wanted to get a group of people who do work with children. I don't specifically work with children, except maybe my own and my own experiences. But I have taught children, and I think it's something that's really important. So I think it's something also that should be investigated in a broader way and hopefully implemented and allowed to unfold in a bigger way. So let's jump right in and let's first address why is it so important for children to dance or to move? And maybe we can kind of just go around the circle here. Karen, maybe you want to begin and give us your thoughts about why that's so important. Oh,
sorry.
Okay, Karen needs a timeout, so let's begin with Melissa.
Please mute me. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for inviting us all to be together. It's an honor. And I've been contemplating this question since I myself was a disembodied adolescent with no ground inside my own being. So at every stage of human development, there's another reason why movement is so important. And I'll just touch on a few and then scoop up at the end if need be. But for the pregnant women and the families, the birthing families, it's really a way to give an imprint that will infuse the cells and the soul of the incarnating being for the rest of their lives if they come in dancing. And it's so helpful to the pregnant being as they are preparing to deliver a child, because it opens the channel, it befriends the body, it can, and even can teach ways for really staying grounded in birth and with all the deeds that come after birth in the rearing of a child. I'll make a big jump. With childhood cycle, I think it's so important that we give young people a way to work with their emotional energy And we have this whole field of social and emotional learning for children, and moving with the different feeling states and being able to befriend them and understand how they're moving through our bodies, and then to find creative ways to work with them through story in particular with the children feels important. I'll do one more jump and then pass it. I think for the adolescents, of which there are many, many stages, but I'm thinking of the older adolescents, the dance can be a way for them to access something bigger than the story, than the reality they see on a screen or all around them, to remember they're part of something great, and that there is this self that's not just this and the burdens of their lives, but that they can have a transcendent experience through their bodies. And dance is traditionally, old and new, as you say, Leslie, a way for that to happen. So those are just a few seeds of why dance with our young people. It's essential. Over to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes. Karen, we'll come back to you, and we'll come back to everybody at the end, but let's just each share our thoughts to begin.
Well, I've been a teacher for many, many years, and I saw the transformation that occurred daily when children are encouraged to dance and move. And I quote a very famous dance educator, Margaret Dobler, who said, in schools, every child is given pencils, crayons, and art supplies, but they're not given the skill or the material or the elements of dance to experience dance and develop themselves as dancers. So I agree completely with her that dance education is something that should be included for all children, to develop their bodies, their creativity through their bodies, and their knowing their bodies. That's what I have to say.
And isn't it interesting that we don't need any tools to do that? You know, you're saying they're given crayons, they're given, we already have a body. We just need to use it. And yeah, we don't need another vehicle. So yeah. Okay. Alana, maybe we can get your thoughts on this as we go around.
Yeah, it's just so honored to be here, and so exciting to hear what everybody has to say, to have a group of colleagues to listen to. What a gift. I think often when there's a lot of obvious emotional needs met the minute we move in our body. Everything is there for us, and we know that when we're still, the brain the size of a quarter lights up in our brain, and the minute we move, the whole brain lights up. And yet we're asking children to sit quietly and do their work, which means their brain is barely lit, and the ones who move are the ones who know what they need to do, as opposed to the ones who need to sit still. Yes. And we also know from this,
those are the ones that are punished usually. Yeah,
absolutely. I was one of those. And we know that these wonderful studies from years ago where they could log 3,000 movements in a 6-month-old, all distinguishable movements. And by the time these kids were entering preschool in Western civilization, they were down to 300 movements. And by the time they get into middle school, where there's safety issues, they've seen as few as 15 to 20 actual gestural movements in a day, as they still their body and reduce their movements in order to be safe and to be in compliance. And so we're taking this huge creative body of body movement and joy and pleasure, and we're reducing it down and down and down and down, which means we're reducing their creativity, their innovative energies, their intellect, their ability to make good choices, their ability to open up to new possibilities, because it's through movement that all of that stays moving and open and possible. So it's a very scientifically, just demonstratable, so to speak. It is science. It is not about those of us who just know moving in our bodies is it. It is research. And we watch teachers who work with us all the time who begin to have their kids get up every 30 minutes and play a game and then sit down. They talk about the increased learning and no behavior problems, and suddenly their kids are in joy in the room. And I mean, it just works. It really does. It opens up the story that was in their bodies from the beginning that we quieted, and now it's awakening. So, yeah, I get on my soapbox. I could go on and on. I'll
Yes,
pass it on.
I hear you, and I find that really sad, like that we've come to that place. So we're gonna come back to that definitely. Wendy, what would you like to add to the mixed?
I can echo what everybody has said. The whole concept, we are born into these bodies. It is our tool on the earth, as you said. Ted Sean said, I think, it is the only art of which we ourselves are what it is made of. And so we're born with them. But we have in our society, and not all societies, but our culture and society has overemphasized the intellectual. And we've just said it exists like up here. We cart these big heads around, And I think that the more that we can keep that integration. So why is it important to work with children? They begin already integrated. There's no question about that. You don't ask a 6-month-old how it works. They don't define the emotional, the spiritual, the intellectual, the physical. They just do. They just are. But we as a society start taking those out and identifying the constructs and the confines on them. And so working with children, for me, has been so important because it's like keeping that open, that connectedness, that integration, because they will become adults for the most part. Hopefully they will all become adults. And those adults, if they lose that, then the work is so much more difficult, so much more to be able to get an adult to reintegrate than a child who has never lost it. So for me, that's like keep the channels open. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yes. Well, let's hear from Rawan. So Rawan, you don't specifically work with children in dance, but more with children in play.
Yeah.
But to me, it's part of the same thing.
Absolutely. It's a mix. It's a mix of play therapy, or it kind of looks like roughhousing, So it's a lot of physical movement combined with a behavior therapy. So I combine the two, and I work with kids who are going through transitions, kids who have like behavior issues, kids that are at risk of being suspended from school, refugee kids that have gone through traumatic experiences. But anyway, for me, really and truly, as everybody already said, children are born integrated, but with being there's a term we could say adulterated. So they begin to lose their connection and that integration, and I feel that sometimes they need our help to not lose it, or to hold on to that connection. First of all, movement, play, dance, whatever it is, it relaxes their nervous system. It raises their immunity. It makes them, move away from fight and flight. So it's really core to them being present in their bodies, expansive rather than contractive, and just open to learning if you're working in an educational environment, or if you're in a therapy or a more therapeutic environment. So creativity, expression is always something that brings on more integration and more of a makes the child more whole.
That's wonderful, the word adulterated. I never thought about that before, but yeah, becoming an adult, we are adulterated, I guess. Yes. So I want to go back to something that Alana brought up. You brought up the research about the parts of the brain and the number of movements. So we know this is happening, but why is this happening? In the sense of, how did we get to this point? How did we get to this point that we are dumbing down is not the right word, but that we're reducing, like that we're bringing all of this down. As you all have mentioned, children begin in this idyllic state and then somehow move into something else. So you are all unmuted. So whoever would like to address that, please go ahead. Yes, Karen.
Well, the history of schools is very interesting. Schools were a function of preparing people to become factory workers or workers. So, you have to be compliant, you have to sit quietly, you have to have your little break where you're allowed to go do whatever and come back and sit quietly again and listen and not speak out of turn and behave yourself so that you'll become a good worker that will be able to listen to the boss, not move around when you shouldn't be. And so schools became this way of, what's the word, conditioning people, and also a babysitter. And so, the idea of being creative and artistic and enjoying yourself and being joyful, that wasn't a part of school. And most cultures, we have schools that are quite, even now, very suppressive of anyone that wants to get out and do it. That's what I have to say about
Mm.
Something tells me we were all those children that wanted to run and jump. But yeah. And it's kind of interesting as we move into the future and we start talking about artificial intelligence and robots and all that kind of stuff, it seems to me where that started also. As we stopped using our bodies, we kind of started to get into this not being human place of either not moving or being repressed or whatever. So it's kind of interesting to think of it as something that has moved us into the future.
Interesting.
Leslie, could I add a couple things here?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. It's already so rich and complete, but here's a couple more thoughts. Not all of our children are born whole or integrated. And movement has been such a powerful medicine for parents of children with different abilities. And it's such a profound healing modality when doctors say there's nothing much we can do for this child. And then they find a Feldenkrais or some kind of movement practice to help them reweave their brain in whatever ways. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And also, movement is such a powerful way for imbuing culture and helping young people get a deeper understanding of where they come from and of many different ways of praying and being humans on this planet. And it's such a fast track for really opening up that empathic way of knowing our own history, but also the people around us. And so it's a precious resource in that way too. And you've said it so beautifully about how movement can help us unwind trauma, but it can also just on the daily help young people just regulate so that they can pay attention and at the least. And there's a ton of research on that too. Just if young people are given the opportunity to really move in a big way before school opens, how they're able to attend to the boxes that they are put in with more awareness and more discipline and actually more success mathematically and in science too.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, as a balancing or regulating of, and it's kind of interesting going back to what Karen was saying about as a way to sort of control people. It's interesting that nobody thought about the fact that, like, if you make people sit still, they're going to get weaker. Like just the exercise aspect of moving around, that even if you wanted to create factory workers, wouldn't you want them to be strong? Or wouldn't you? I mean, they were really working on compliant and not focusing on these other things, maybe.
Well, I think it's really
Any other
interesting that
thoughts? Mhm.
I had a thought. I think it's interesting that when our work is all through improvisational movement for the kids, through movement games and all kinds of ways that they can find their own movements again. And when we get a lot of them at the end of the school day, and from holding on all day, their nervous systems are completely blown out. They don't even have the capacity to regulate at that point. And as soon as we get them sounding, moving, doing art, creating sets, making contacts, they begin to connect to each other. And connection is such a big part of what allows them to re-enter their bodies. And so I'm so passionate about different kinds of movement games that connect them so that they can actually see each other, play with each other, attune to each other, and suddenly they're there, they're present. And once they're back in their bodies, they're fine. Yeah. They can come in and be there with us, and we've worked with everything from 3-year-olds to 106-year-olds for 35 years, and we've never found any group that wouldn't come in to play with us and be happy to get back in their bodies. You know, it's like people want it. And now, as Melissa was saying now, there's books of research about why it is the path to health and well-being on every level. From the biggest prevention from Alzheimer's is now spontaneous movement. Spontaneous movement is the biggest prevention of Alzheimer's, for goodness sake, you know? So anyway.
I think it's all of those things. To me, it's that concept that says there is beautiful movement in stillness. We need times of stillness. We need to move in stillness. We need community and ritual movement. We're all doing the same thing. There's something ecstatic about being able to do that. And there's something amazing about being able to do whatever we feel. It isn't one or the other of those things. I think what we have tried to do is regulate it to the extent that it's over controlled. It isn't that you don't need stillness or you don't need group movement or you don't need individual. We have tried to control it in time frames that don't fit the body or the emotions or the mind. So I think it's all of those things. It isn't any one of them. It's attending to that balance that comes through that experience of being a human being. And
absolutely.
And the ability to be dynamic. I think that's one of the things that dance really teaches you, because it is changeable, or you're following the music, but just that sort of surrender and to be able to be dynamic. I also think that with all the research that's coming up from neurologists and people who are working with trauma about co-regulation and how our nervous systems just co-regulate with other people. And I think this is such an important thing to realize, because it isn't about going to a dance class and dancing with other people and, oh, that's going to change your life. It's just our nervous systems in and of themselves are sensing so much more. And I think a lot of us already knew this. People who are probably oversensitive realized that their nervous system is just reacting to the environment and to the other people around them. But now, again, there's scientific research to support that. So now we know that our nervous systems are already responding and reacting without ever consciously trying to do anything. And that is so fascinating that on that level, we are already interacting on that level without any awareness of actually what's happening to us.
Yeah.
So what are some special considerations when you're working with children? What are special things that you need to take into account that maybe you wouldn't need to to deal with, or you would deal with in a different way if you were working with adults? If anyone
I
Can I
wants
can
start?
say,
to.
I was going to
Mhm.
let someone else go first. Rawan, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, what I really notice the most is that um, the communication, the verbal, being verbal is not always easy or natural for a child, for them to be verbal about their experiences or what they're going through. So dance or play gives them a chance to express themselves without talking. You know, talk therapy is great, but it has its limitations. Uh, to add, you can also add the fact that it kind of it's a mental activity rather than a in the body activity. So dancing, playing, running, it just it opens a door to a child's world, and the child can express what they're going through, what they're feeling. It may even open up a discussion. So you get on the ground, you play with the child, or you put on some music and you dance, and then that opens a door to them telling you their story or what's on their mind or what happened, the situation that happened that made them uncomfortable, or that person who bullied them. It really opens up a doorway.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that the brain is not fully developed until adulthood, that children actually have, there are different parts of your brain that develop at different stages. And Melissa spoke about this in the beginning with these different stages of children or adolescents. But I think that the majority of people, although that information is out there, don't really realize that. So you can't just, as you were saying, just explain everything to a child, but through movement or something that's more tactile or interactive, you probably can communicate on a completely different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Roanne, thank you for really speaking to the importance of that connection with the child or children as they are having a moving experience. And that's a birthright of every human, but it's really more of a privilege of a few, because in the school systems as we know them, there really isn't that kind of opportunity to move with the young people and then give them that kind of intimate, integrative experience.
Mm.
So I think of your work, Alana, and certainly mine and maybe others, that to really infuse the space with many different modalities to help them digest, make sense of, make expression from the movement into some other kind of articulation, whether it's through paint or drawing or poetry or whatever, or connection with each other, that allows them to open and also digest, integrate, because that's our responsibility. And that's something that I think I really try to aspire towards, is that I don't take young people any place I can't help them get back from. And I have had teenagers say to me, you're asking us to open every Tuesday afternoon when you come here, and it's not really safe for us to be that open. And I was like, oh, at first they were so enthusiastic, and then there was a constriction. And so this whole idea of choice, every moment, is there a choice? Now they can throw up resistance, and we have to play with that and figure out how to tangle with that to get them into some kind of engagement. But then also that they have some agency, because as we have learned here today, so often they don't in their lives. So yeah, I just want to put those pieces in for now. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, Melissa, because one of the things I've noted over the 35 years that I've been working with kids is the shift that's happened with the advent of social media, with being overly photographed and videoed. I have seen children as young as like under 2 years old starting to see themselves through the eyes looking at them as opposed to their eyes looking out. And I didn't notice that before. That didn't happen until they went to school. And now, because children, whether they're in school or not, are being videoed, their parents are showing it to their friends, it's showing up on social media, they're watching themselves. I never saw I don't know when I first saw myself, but I was definitely not that young. And so we didn't have that. Everything we saw was from the inside out. And I'm watching children now that they don't even have a concept of not being viewed from the outside in. By the time they have consciousness, at one or whatever age that is, they've already seen themselves a million times through videos and stuff, generally speaking. And I would say I've started noticing that difference in children like 20 years ago, and having to work more in the dark sometimes so they could get back to not seeing themselves as a reflection of something else, but just really responding to their internal senses. So that's something that I think is it's new in our world, and particularly in our world. So something to be aware of, like it's changed it. I don't have that experience, so I can't even really understand it.
Yeah, Wendy,
And I think both Wendy and Melissa brought up important points about kind of sacred space, because I think in order to really be free, you want to feel like you're not observed.
Yeah.
And what Melissa was saying about having agency and being able to get back from wherever you go. I wish all dance teachers, especially if you're doing some kind of a spiritual or sacred dance, would have that philosophy, because yes, you can't take people to a place if you don't know how to get them back from wherever they've just gone. And I think that if you've had the experience, then more likely to be able to get them back. But there is a certain amount of responsibility in working with somebody, in that if you want them to trust you, if you want them to expand and go into new places, you have to be able to support them in order to bring them back. Or, as Wendy's saying, to help them not be completely self-conscious about whatever it is that they're doing. So I think sacredness or sacred space is a very important, in different ways. Those are two different aspects of it. But I think that that's something really to consider, is that kind of support, and especially with children, because as parents, one of your responsibilities is to keep your child safe. And I think when you're working with children, same thing. You need to keep them safe in order for them to grow in that environment. Alana, I interrupted you. What were you going to say? Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I mean, I think, safety is absolutely the biggest issue for the children we're working with. And that certainly, as Wendy was saying, did not used to be true. They don't even, when we open them up, they're not certain there's going to be an earth, let alone that it's safe to live on this earth. And especially all the children we work with, 95% of them are children who are underprivileged, underserved, in some way or another, very vulnerable. And safety's up big time in their communities and their homes. It's such a big issue. And one of the things that I think somebody's already said this another way, but in our training with our facilitators, one of the most important things before we go in the room is to our own vessel. So we are bringing a sacred space into the room. So what is it that we need to get rid of that went on in the day? What kind of projections are we getting ready to put on those kids that we're not perfect, but we want to clear it to the degree that we can. So as we walk in, we are as clean a vessel as we can be, which does create sacred space for those kids to play in. And then to really pay attention to the ways in which we are buying into the labels that have been put on them. So a lot of times we have teachers who want to say, now watch out for him, and she'll do this and he'll do that, and they won't play or whatever. And we always just say, thank you, but we'll just see what happens. We're okay with it, kind of we don't want their labels on the kids, and we don't want to make them shamed or criticize them, because that's not helpful, but just to say, we'll be fine with the kids and reassure them. And then to notice, as I am in the teaching space, where am I projecting? What happens in the room that will pull up one of my stereotypes, pull up one of my judgments, pull up one of my fears that I won't be able to handle the child or won't be enough for the child? And so for me, it's a constant resetting all during the teaching process of coming back to aligning with the universe, to sacred space, as you say, coming back to opening to the universe's guidance instead of thinking I'm doing it, that it's about me, being present with whatever is happening in the room in the moment, and it is loving and open as I possibly can. And so much of that in our system has to do with seeking appreciations all the time. So what can we appreciate about each kid and ourselves in every moment? So you've got a kid running around the room like a wild thing. It's like, boy, one has a lot of energy. He's really bringing his energy, and what turns out is he's a leader. And if we can pull him in and let him lead a group, then he'll be happy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's that whole thing of what needs appreciating in the room, because most of these kids have rarely experienced an appreciation. Everything they hear is sit down, be quiet, be still, or even worse than that, you are not okay. You are bad. You are wrong. And there's no way that's going to take anybody to a place of contributing ultimately to their society. So I'll stop there.
Do you do programs for parents?
We don't do programs specifically for parents, but at the performances, we bring all the parents in. And so we have
Because
this really...
everything you were just saying about, resetting yourself before you, the first thing I thought was, wow, if parents did that before they went and interacted with their children, that would be absolutely amazing. Like to realize their sacred space or what they are, just their energy that they're bringing to the situations.
Absolutely. And so we do train our teachers now. We do teacher trainings all over the country in exactly that. Like and it's amazing. I get so excited because they will write to us and they'll say, you're starting to things are crazy in the classroom and you're trying to fix it and get it quiet. Go inside instead and see what's going on with you. What are you bringing in? What kind of fear? What kind of anger from the morning with your husband? What kind of, financial stress, whatever? What are you bringing in? Reset yourself. Give your story to the Great Spirit. Let the Spirit come through you. And they report 100% when they look back out at the room, they see something different. Their whole perspective changes once they calm their own inner story and come into their breath and movement in their own body. Suddenly the kids are fine and everything begins to settle. And they did not do classroom management. They did personal love. What needs loving here?
Yeah.
But that's it.
Absolutely.
That's co-regulation. Because if the adults in the room regulate themselves and get rid of their junk, from their day, and they walk into a classroom full of children who are high strung, their energy and their centeredness is going to affect the whole space and all the children. So exactly what you said. That's great.
Thank you.
Well, I'm making a request. I'm going to say it out loud here. For you to start programs for parents. Because now, being a grandparent, I mean, I look back at my parenting days and, I see all the mistakes that I made in retrospect. But now I'm watching other people. My children have children. And, so now I'm at this other place of watching people, and everything that you just said that you're teaching the teachers. If we could teach the parents that, and Melissa was saying in the beginning about how the dance starts in the womb. And I think we're kind of aware of that to a certain extent. I think a lot of mothers are aware of whatever they're doing is really impacting the child. But then also, I think that we kind of need to take that one step further and bring the parents in and make them realize again about just co-regulation. If you walk into the room and you're all messed up from your day, then that's inflicting on everybody around you. Maybe not to put it that way, but it's impacting everyone around you. So that would be wonderful. Just change your teacher training, rename it, and teach it to parents, please.
I do want to just say, I know Melissa had something to add, so I don't want to go on here, but I do want to say that most of our people are children of color. And so it's a whole different story in terms of me, what is innately white in the way I'm teaching that I don't even know. And I don't even imagine that many of these parents are working 3 shifts a day. And so what we can bring to them is a chance to experience their children in the limelight, performing, looking beautiful, looking talented, looking gifted, kids who would never have piano lessons or voice lessons or gymnastics or all those things. And at the end, we have them all dance together. And so the parents and children get to play with each other, even just for a moment.
Yeah.
It's a reference point. But it's a beautiful thing you're saying, and I can't imagine those parents would want to hear very much from me about parenting.
Yeah.
given
I think
their
some I
lives.
think some would, they just don't. I think a lot of parents are just kind of clueless, and they're just really
Yeah.
not sure what to do. And you see it, like you see things escalating, and it does if you can step out, that doesn't need to happen. But I think just to be aware of that is
Yeah.
important.
Thank
And
you.
as you
I will
said, them all
think
dancing
about that.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to come back to your question, which is what do children need perhaps that adults might not? And my experience is my own personal experience in the classroom with 30 children crammed into a little room. And so I after 30 years, I've realized no one was watching what I was doing in my room. So I got to do things that I realized nobody cared what I was doing, but it really mattered every day for those 30 children what we did and what kind of day they were going to have. So I got rid of all the extra furniture and I just kept desks around the room. And so there's a huge space in the middle of the room, so anybody could move around anytime they wanted to. We could do art in the middle of the room. We could have a big circle, and I was always in the circle. I wasn't at the front of the room. I was part of the group, and I gave the kids choices. If they didn't want to dance, they could stay sitting out. But of course, they would see how much fun we were having, and they would join in right away. Of course, they couldn't help themselves. And then I had a very structured lesson plan where we would warm up and have fun and play a game and do things. And then we would have a time of choreographing. And they would create through a structure of me introducing Laban's movement elements. And they would have to have it in small groups. And that was a interesting part of the class, was making every child accept each other, because I would create the groups, right? So I would put people together. They didn't have that choice. So it wasn't always the cool kids hanging out and doing something together. It was everybody getting a chance to partake together. And then they would have to allow each person one thing, that because some kids want to dominate the whole thing, right? And run the show. So you'd say everybody gets to have one of their things that they want to do in this piece. So you have a beginning, some movement elements, then an ending, 2 minutes maybe, and then they're going to perform for everybody. So everybody would show what they did, and it was amazing what the kids could do. Just giving them this little structure, nothing too complex, and then they would show this, and of course the audience would have to critique. Now they had to have 2 stars and a wish, so no criticism, no put downs. 2 stars, what they saw that was wonderful to them, and then what maybe they could have done something a little different for that part. And of course, you always have some kind of little theme or something to do with mathematics. You can integrate dance into every subject area, right? So
Yeah.
that's the structure. And then, of course, a cool down. You could have a nice sort of laying on the floor, little thing that they could all just chill out. But I mean, so I developed that over some years, and it was wonderful. The kids loved it, you know. And if things were getting, like you said, Alana, out of hand, or things were getting wound up, you could just say, "Oh, let's change our day and do this right now. Let's go do this," and focus them on something where they could move and express. Actually,
There's something really cool in
That's
that,
beautiful.
Karen, is that adding some structure. It's not like you're over structuring or controlling, but you're giving them some container within which to put it. It's like if you look at indigenous ritual dances and all that, there's a container, there's a structure. It's quite structured, really. And so there is something in us that loves to find, like the universe. There's a structure in the universe. We're not just whirling all over the place. There's a moment for that. But coming back to that, I think is so important to find the freedom within that. It's not outside of that. It's not because of that. It's not even constricted by that. In fact, I'm discovering, when my kids, I was talking about how I found them seeing themselves from the outside in. So I'm so fortunate. I have this beautiful space that goes completely black. There's no light. It's downstairs and it's a big space. And I would give the kids and parents, if parents wanted to come, because sometimes they want to watch, I said, we have no watching here, but you can experience with them. If you want to be part of it, I don't have any problem. But I would give them all, start with one glow in the dark something. So you can move in complete blackness, but you only get one glow in the dark thing. But you can add more if you want. It was so fascinating to watch who and when people would add other glow in the dark stickers to themselves. And I thought that's really interesting, watching the kids who never added another one. Watching the kids who stick 14 on themselves. And there's a lot you can see when you see that. And then you can look at each of those children in their own light, But that's giving sort of a structure within which they can discover important things, about life.
Well, sometimes it makes them feel safe too, to have some kind of a structure. And I suppose that's balance as well, the yin and the yang, the flowing and the structure, and finding that place between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Well, I see 6
Please,
stars. I see 6 stars, and I have a couple wishes, but I just want to chime in here. We're talking about form and freedom,
Yes.
and I think at different stages of development, we need different balances of that.
Big time.
And all of us, I mean, we could really put a few books together in the thinking that's here amongst us. I'm so inspired listening to each person here. And since we're talking to an audience, I just want to say what I see in front of me is people who were willing to embrace their own inner child and tend to that and continue to transform and awaken a creativity that's pretty limitless and innovative at every moment. And that's really what we need to liberate inside of ourselves in order to be able to figure out how to meet the ever-changing, both developmental ever-changing needs of the young people, but also in these times. And so I just want to celebrate just the innovation, the creativity, the fresh material that keeps moving through each of us here. And yes, we give it some form so that we can train the next generation. That gets to my wish in a minute, and pass it along. But it also, I just want to acknowledge, like, there's no formulas for this stuff. It really is meeting each moment, each situation, and really meeting it. And I feel I came to a place, and Alana, you really started to speak to it, where the young people learn through imitation, they learn through story, they learn through some of the form, especially I find in middle school, they really need that a little bit of structure. Everybody's doing the same thing, and then it can change as they get older. But they also need to see models that look like themselves. They need to not just learn from me. And I made a choice at some point that I was really going to train the next generation so that people who come from many different cultural, socioeconomic, racial backgrounds would awaken and do their healing too, and then bring this to the forefront of their own communities.
Yeah.
And that's my wish, is that we continue to really, and I know everybody's doing it in their own ways, but there's something about it requires going outside of a comfort zone to really realize we don't have it. Actually, we've got so much, and we also have there's so much wanting to come through. People who may look different than us or come from different backgrounds, who have answers that riddles I can't solve. And so I just want to name that in this environment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. We all have something to offer and something different and different experiences. And if everybody can bring that to the table, then you can reach everybody in some way, just through all that diversity.
Yeah.
Anyone else that would like to share how they work with children in particular?
I just want to say I really agree with Alana that it's up to the teacher to be ready and open to the movement themselves, because I taught a teacher program at university where I was called integrating music and dance into the regular classroom, and many of those teachers they didn't really want to dance or participate. They wanted to sit there and take notes, and I was like, no, you have to actually do this, because how are you going to go back to your room and do it with them if you're not doing it, like moving and feeling that joy in the movement? And I'll just stop there. But it was an interesting experience for me. I already knew that not everyone wants to dance or move. I already knew that, but I expected more, I guess, from these teachers who were very well-meaning people, but it's, when you're a dancer and you're a dancer, it's like just part of you. And if it's not, it's interesting to me how that has to be, you have to, as an adult, it's harder for those people to get what you're talking about. Yeah. So.
That's right up there with the parents as well, though. That's the same thing. They have come through their own experience, whatever it is that brought them to this place. And many of them have lived in environments that would be, I wouldn't understand it because I didn't grow up in that environment, but they did. I have a good friend who's a teacher who has had a group of 24 grade 4 boys. And she said, I have to do a presentation that includes movement. Like, I can't do that. Like, are you crazy? And so she said, would you come in and do it? I said, sure, I'll work with you. We could do it together. That would be fun. But she, in her own mind, said, I can't, I think I'm a good teacher, but I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I wasn't brought up with that understanding that would give me that comfort level. And so I think we're back to, like you say, training the parents, training the teachers, like, because come to the place they're at from wherever they've been. And we don't know where that is.
But part of that, I think, is normalizing dance, that it isn't something, I think at this point, at least in Western culture, a lot of it is you have to be trained in it. And it isn't like little children dance. There is that kind of dance as well. So and that's why maybe calling it movement rather than dance, that you could, that everybody does that, or everybody can do that. It isn't something you have to be trained in and go out and take dance classes in order to do that.
That's and with this grade 4 boys, that was a good point. I thought, okay, I don't know these kids from Adam. Like, who are these 24 little boys like in grade 4? And I'm not a teacher in the traditional educational. So I said to her, what's their favorite subject? She said, they all love math. I said, okay, we're not dancing now. We're doing moving mathematics.
Great.
Exactly.
The whole program about how we would move math, geometry, and, ratios and all that stuff. And they were fantastic. But it just put it in a different context for them that was understandable, I think. And that's a hard thing. You have to always be looking at where are they coming from? And how do I have to start where they're at, not where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Exactly. so that they can understand you. I know my nephew went to a Waldorf school and they learned math through music.
Yeah.
Steiner would teach, that's how he taught math. And I thought, wow, yes, I get that, because I'm a math person. Like, I love math. And that's what I see in dance. Like, I see all the patterns and stuff like that. So that's how I approach that. And I'm sure you can approach it in infinite ways. It's just, yes, what you see, and hopefully being able to figure out what the other person sees if you want them to join you in that, in the dance.
And then I have to bring up Rudolf Laban, of course, because he said, we are all dancers. We have a dancer within us. And not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's a quick thing on some YouTube or something. But really, I mean, there's a difference. And the spiritual people, the dance people that understand the spiritual nature of dance would see this. To me, there's a difference between a class where we're lined up and we all have to do the movement exactly like the teacher, or it's not right, or a dance class where you can be yourself, improvise, do the movement the way your body tells you to do it. There's a huge difference there, right? And I think that's what we have to, I'm not putting down classes where everyone is doing the same thing or performing, or the ballet exactly the way it's supposed to be done, but there is a huge difference in the spiritual connection you get when you're improvising and creating something very personal to trying to fit in and do it the way the teacher wants you to do it.
Big time difference. In my dance choir with children, the biggest difficulty was kids who were in dance classes. They were the most challenging, because they came from a place where, well, just tell us, a pas de bourrée and then a this. It's like, oh no, we don't do those here, and they found it really difficult. They found it very difficult to come to that place where they're moving from their heart. Their heart was just a place in their body that was moving 3 steps to the left, back, right, forward. So they found it more difficult. And these were kids like 8 to 12 years old. It took more time to kind of get them back to just being in their heart.
Well, I guess again, it's about putting that out there, that there are infinite ways. The dance isn't any one thing, but it's very individual in many different things, and it's just about finding the one that matches you. Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who would do ballet, but they don't want to do something that's free form, that they have to sort of create, so they wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Well, our dance world in the sort of Western culture has created some huge trauma. As much as I love the ballet, I love modern dance, I love all of that, but I have seen such pain in people who have gone through that world, pain, like deep pain in their bodies
and physical, yes,
and what they can do or not. And that to me, I don't know what the word is for that. I don't call that dance. There's another word that someone hasn't made that up yet. It's, I find that very sad, very sad.
So I just want to share a little story that's the other side of the coin. So I came from a severely violent and abusive childhood, and it was the structured container of formal dance that began my healing. And without the ballet and without the jazz, without the absolute surety that there was a way to do it right, I could strive for a way to do it right. It was a tight container. And for me, I had no container. It was total chaos all the time. And entering that container, I landed, even though I'm like a passionate improviser in terms of dance now, it was that incredible container that began to help me have any sense of my own body at all, or that I even existed on the planet. And it was through that that formal dance that I began to heal and ultimately to leave home and get out of my family. And so I love what Melissa was saying at the beginning, that there's all these developmental stages, and those are different for each person. And people can be ready for one thing and then ready for another thing and then ready for another. But I think if we can get people moving in any way at all, we are doing it. It's good.
Exactly.
I mean, we find that people will write poetry before they will move in their bodies, virtually anything besides move in their bodies.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's an exaggeration, not people, but many of the folks that we work with in businesses and stuff. So I'm so, when I listen to all of you talking, I get really passionate. It's like, get out there and train the world. You know, we're all holding the same
Get up and dance.
the same dream, and get everybody moving. You know, they have this
Yes.
German research that showed that 20 minutes of movement will elevate your feel-good neurotransmitters for 24 hours. Just 20 minutes of movement, and all the things that make you feel good stay elevated for 24 hours. Well, so let's just get everybody in the whole world to move for 20 minutes at the start of their day.
We're trying.
I do feel some good
everybody
shit.
here is trying in their own way. Yes.
Yeah, and
No,
you are
absolutely.
particularly, Leslie. So thank you, Leslie, for continuing to keep getting the word out to
Yes.
larger audiences.
No, I would say that dance is something that saved my life, as it probably has for many of you. And so, yeah, I'm very adamant that that it's something that at least needs to be experienced. Maybe it isn't your thing, and maybe it isn't the way out for you or the way through, but I think it is for a lot of people. And many of you have mentioned, the science and the research that's being done now. I think we all knew that from the beginning, but now other people are agreeing with us and putting it out there maybe it's a more digestible way. Maybe it's a way that people can accept it a little bit better if there is some proof as to what's actually going on. But whatever's happening, it's good. Yeah. Anyone else that would like to share any of their experiences with children and how they work with children? Well, I want to let people know how they can get in touch with you. So I know that both Melissa and Alana, I know you both have programs. So maybe you want to just speak about that a little bit, and I will put up. But what types of programs do you have for either working with children or training people to work with children? Just tell us a little bit about that. Melissa, maybe you want to begin?
Well, I want to acknowledge that Alana and I kind of grew up in parallel realities right here in the foothills of these Rocky Mountains. I would see you around town, like studying and fervently building your work, and we shared musicians, and you went really robustly in a certain direction, and I went a little bit different, but I just really want to honor you as my colleague, and I have such awe and respect for what you've done, Alana, with a devotion that we all share. It's quite touching, and thank you. And I'm happy to go, but I just feel like we really landed with a similar soul assignment, and we each took it slightly differently, but the heart is the same, and the broken heart is the same. Because what occurs to me, yeah, I'm feeling it. What occurs to me is I saw an image on passed through my feed, and at the holidays this weekend, I felt like the children are the ones on the cross right now. And my devotion is to help get them off in whatever ways possible. And so I do train people. We have the Soma Source Path, and pretty much everybody who's come through that work started as a teenager and went through their own rite of passage in our rooms here in the Rockies or in other places around the world. And I do have the privilege of working in many diverse communities. all the way to the UN. I got young people standing up at the UN, moving their bodies. It was so gorgeous.
Wow.
It was really a moment to behold. So the Soma Source training, and then I've worked with the Dance of Birth and Small World Dancers, which are the children, and then our coming of age work and our rites of passage, Surfing the Creative. And I work a lot with adults who want to gather themselves and heal this stuff so that they can be inspired role models and move with these times. So goldenbridge.org and Golden Girls Global, which is young women, they, working with the young ones whose bodies are changing and in puberty all around the planet, from the Congo to Pine Ridge to Boulder. So Golden Bridge, there you go. Thank you so much. But
yes, I will have all the links.
Thank you.
In the show notes as well. So that's goldenbridge.org and goldengirlsglobal.org. And
thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
You can find out what Melissa's doing and what kind of programs they have for working with children and adolescents and the whole spectrum, I think, in one way or another. Yeah. And Alana, you also have programs, yes?
Yeah, I have to quit crying from Melissa's appreciation. It's amazing how those of us in this position don't get as much appreciation as we give quite often to others. And just watching you, Melissa, through the years explode onto the earth globally and become a major player internationally has been so inspiring. And so it just has kept me going to know that, and for all of you here today, being in contact with you makes it possible for me to keep doing it. Sometimes I think I'm the only one, although we know that's not true. You know, you
it feels like it sometimes. Yes.
Sometimes, yeah, it does. And yeah, we have a certification program where people can become certified facilitators. And this summer we have our summer retreat off the coast of Seattle at the Whidbey Retreat Center, and it's a week-long immersion in all the trainings, all the ways to show up in your community through theater, improv, dance, fine arts, every kind of spiritual journeying, conscious body coaching, which we have a certification program in. So lots of ways. But if you go to turningyouwheel.org/summer retreat, you can see what we're planning for this summer. And it's a very special opportunity to be immersed in the whole story in a beautiful place in nature. And that's sort of the most important upcoming event for us. And we offer scholarships of all kinds to that, financial aid to everybody who needs it. And so if you are interested or know anybody who would be interested, just send them to the website. And I feel to just say to everybody, we are open to anybody coming to work with us in all the states that we're in across the country, as volunteers to try it out, as interns in their university, as people who just want to see what we're up to. And ultimately, you don't have to be certified to come and be a part of serving your community and just see if it's a fit for you. And it won't be for everybody because it's chaos. It's utter chaos in the room, you know, and you have to be able, you know, I had 7 children of my own. I think I learned how to live in chaos with all those kids. But we would love to have anybody just contact us, and we'll find a place to fold you in on your terms and your way. Just like we meet the kids where they are, we will meet you where you are and see how we might intersect, what our intersection might be with you. So, yeah, and thank you so much again, Leslie, for bringing this energy together. I know this is vibrating across the whole planet, and I'm so grateful for that energy. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. And again, that's turningthewheel.org, and I will have that in the show notes. Okay. And ladies, so Karen, if people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can go to my website.
Karen McKinley.
I've just spent a year promoting a book I wrote about dance. And it was a biography of the two sisters that I went to their dance school in Vancouver as a child. And they, like Alana said, there was a lot of structure, which was wonderful because my life also was very chaotic outside of the dance school. But we also improvised with the tools that we'd learned through the structured class, which is something I'll never forget and always appreciate. So, yeah, my book is basically the website's about my book right now. But it's interesting to me how each person here is just marvelous. I have to thank you all for coming to this and giving us your words, because it makes me feel, like you said, Alana, I don't feel so isolated. I retired from teaching from 30 years, and now I'm a writer, but it is more, you are more alone. But I've never stopped taking dance lessons. So my husband and I take tango right now, and
Oh, that's so nice.
I'll never stop dancing.
Love
So
it.
I will continue to be a dancer in many forms until I die, I hope.
Yes,
Beautiful.
it
Yeah.
can change. Exactly. Yep. All through your life.
Final
Yes.
dance.
So Karen's website is her name, Karen McKinley Kurnaedy.com. And she's also on Instagram. Whoops, sorry. Lost it there. There we go. Also on Instagram. Again, her name, Karen McKinley. I'm saying it wrong.
Kurnaedy.
Kurnaedy.
Good,
What did you
good
just
Indonesian
say? You
name.
say it.
Yeah, it's Kurnaedy. Yeah.
It will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kurnaedy.
And Wendy, let's go to you, the Sacred Dance Guild.
Yeah. So we don't have any specific programs
The
related to children, but
sacreddanceguild.org.
that is it. But we do a lot. We're really a village. It's exactly what you're talking about, connecting people in a village that says, we get it. So you have other people who get it. We just did a thing last year with the Parliament of the World Religions where we had families and children doing a performance piece called Humankind, bringing together people experiencing the concept of what the refugees in the world feel like. So these programs come up, and we just open the door when that happens. And it can be open to anybody and everybody, depending on what the need is. Leah Mann, one of our gals, was just in Turkey working with the children from the recent disasters there. So they happen as they happen, and really it's just a support network of us working together. Like you said, you need people to know, like, I'm not alone out there. There's other people who think and believe and understand. And if I need a couple of villagers, I can put a call out and they will arrive for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. And Rawan, last but not least, Rawan, you're on Instagram.
I am on Instagram. I've got 2 accounts. The first one is beyond underscore RT underscore RT for recreation therapy. That one's more geared towards children and the work I do solely for children. And then there's another one that's more movement based. I put some of my dance stuff and some of my Tai Chi and Qigong work. And it's Rawan's Chi, so RAWANSCHI. So those are my
And
2
both
accounts.
of those, yes,
Are
and
on-
both of them, you post a lot of interesting posts about different things. So yes, if that's working
Yeah,
with
and
children is
it's
something
all-
interesting.
It's all movement based, so
Yes.
that's the heart of it all. Really appreciate this gathering, and I just want to say thank you to Leslie and everyone. Everyone's presence here is absolutely really, really precious, very inspiring. We're not alone, and it's hard. It's easy to forget that sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts and your experiences. There is a wealth of information here, and I hope that people will follow up if this is a topic that interests them, and I hope it is, because as I said, these are the next generations. So
Yeah.
let's help them however we can. And I do think movement, and obviously all these different perspectives, all these different ways that these women have worked with children, there are infinite ways to do that. So I hope that people will go out and find something that either they can work with their own children, or it is a way to work on your own inner child by doing that work, even if you're not a child. So
Yeah,
I
we're
hope,
definitely the learners in this.
yes,
They're the
absolutely,
teachers.
yes, and we can learn so much from children. So working with children is also very interesting from that perspective. So,
Big time. Big time.
all right, well, thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you
So
so
Thank
wonderful
you,
to
much.
be
Leslie.
together. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cross smiles.
All right. So, thank you also to the listeners. I want to tell you also, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that. My website is universaldancer.com, and you can find information there. And also, if you haven't seen any of the other podcasts, I hope you'll look. They will come up at the end of this video. Have a look. I've interviewed most of the women individually that were on the show tonight. So there are other videos of just me talking to them. So I hope you will go back and have a look at that as well. All right. Well, thank you for being here, and I hope you'll join us again. Bye-bye.